Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another horrible case with you. On October 7th, 2009, Nayana Puhori, who worked at a software company located in the Karadi suburb of Pune, Maharashtra, India, left her office at 8 p.m. to go home after finishing her duty. Usually she would leave the office by 7 p.m., but that day she was delayed due to extra work. It was a winter day, and during winters it gets dark early. So, while leaving the office, Nayana called her husband Abhijit Pujari and informed him that she had just left work and might take a little longer to reach home. Originally from Mothol in Karnataka, Nayana Pujari was living in Pune with her husband Abhijit. While Nayana worked in the IT sector, her husband Abhijit had a job in the banking sector. Nayana was a very simple and kind-hearted woman who treated others well. Pune, where they lived, is also known as the cultural capital of Maharashtra and is an important hub for the IT and automobile industries. 28-year-old Nayana Pujari was a software engineer working at an IT company named Synchron, located in the Karadi suburb of Pune. However, since the company was a bit far from her home, she would always book a taxi to travel to and from work. But on October 7th, 2009, Nayana got late because she was busy with work and ended up finishing around 8 p.m. That's why she called her husband as soon as she left the office. In response, Abhijit told her not to worry, just to take care and try to get home as soon as possible. Synchron had arrangements in place to safely send their female employees home if they left work late. The company had several cabs and buses for this purpose, but that day no cab or bus was available as all the vehicles were out dropping off other employees. So Nayana stood at the nearby bus stop waiting for a local bus to get home. But before any bus arrived, a car pulled up in front of her. It was Yogesh Raut's vehicle. Yogesh Raut then asked Nayana, "Ma'am, you're late today. Are you waiting for a taxi?" Nayana wasn't surprised to see him because Yogesh worked as a driver at the same company. In response to his question, Nayana told him she got late due to work and was now waiting for a local bus to get home. Hearing this, Yogesh said, "Ma'am, why are you taking so much trouble? I can drop you home myself." Since Nayana knew him, she agreed and got into his car, but she had no idea this would be the last journey of her life. After that day, she would never see her husband or her family again. Now, it had been 1 to 2 hours since Nayana left her office, but she still hadn't reached home. That's when Abhijit began to feel worried and tried calling his wife to ask where she was. But his concern deepened when Nayana's phone was found to be switched off. It was already quite dark. A lot of time had passed since she left the office, and now her phone wasn't reachable. So Abhijit called her office, but the employees there told him that it had been a long time since Nayana Puhari had left. After this, Abhijit called every one of Nayana's friends whose phone numbers he had. He even asked some of his relatives, but he wasn't getting any positive response from anywhere. Now Abhijit couldn't understand what was going on. Nayana was supposed to come straight home, and she had even informed him about it over a call. So where had she gone without telling anyone? He started fearing that something bad might have happened to her, so he quickly went to the nearby police station and filed a missing person report for Nayana. The police there also informed all the police stations in Pune about Nayana's disappearance by sharing her description and instructed that if anyone saw a girl matching her appearance, they should inform them immediately. Slowly, the night of October 7th passed, and the morning of October 8th began. Abhijit and some of his neighbors were trying to search for Nayana, but there was still no sign of her. The entire day of October 8th passed, and the police also couldn't gather any information about Nayana's whereabouts. But on October 9th, 2009, someone called the Pune police and informed them that they had seen a dead body in the forest department compound in Rajgurunagar. As soon as this information was received, the police rushed to the scene and brought Abhijit along with them. When the police saw the body, its condition was severely deteriorated, most likely because it had been lying in the forest. Even though the face of the body was badly damaged, Abhijit burst into tears upon seeing it. This meant that Abhijit had recognized the body, and now the police also officially identified it as that of Nayana Puhuri. After this, the police completed the formalities at the scene and sent the body to the nearby hospital for a post-mortem examination. Most working women usually carry a bag and a phone with them. Apart from daily essentials, their bags also contain debit or credit cards. When the police questioned Abhijit further, they also found out that Nayana had been wearing gold earrings and a Mangal Sutra. But Nayana's phone was missing, her bag couldn't be found, and even her jewelry was gone. Looking at all these missing items, anyone would assume that a robber had murdered Nayana during a robbery. But when the post-mortem report came out, the entire case took a shocking turn. According to the post-mortem report, Nayana had been sexually assaulted by multiple people. The police quickly realized that Nayana had not been killed for robbery, but rather after a horrific act had been committed against her. After the post-mortem report, the police changed the case from missing person to one of abduction, robbery, and horrifying act committed by multiple individuals. The police now began investigating the case more thoroughly and started by questioning Nayana's company. All the employees were interrogated, and the police found out that Nayana had left the office at 8 p.m., but no one knew what happened to her after that. But they then decided to check the CCTV footage around Nayana's company and the nearby areas. This effort paid off because, in one of the cameras, they saw Nayana standing near a bus stop, and after some time, a white car approached her. The CCTV footage showed that 3 people were already sitting inside the car, and when the car stopped near Nayana, she started talking to the man in the driver's seat. They spoke to each other for a few seconds, and then Nayana got into the white car and it drove away. However, the police didn't have to struggle much to identify the car. They found out from Nayana's company that the car belonged to a boy named Yogesh Raut, who worked as a driver in the company. As soon as this was discovered, Yogesh became the primary suspect for the police, and they began trying to catch him. Meanwhile, a separate police team was checking Nayana's bank statement because her purse, which contained her debit card, was missing from the crime scene. During this process, the other police team discovered that a total of 61,000 rupees had been withdrawn from different ATMs using Nayana's card. If 61,000 Indian rupees are converted into US dollars as per today's rate, it amounts to approximately $712. Anyway, the police team that was tracking Yogesh managed to catch him on October 16, 2009, 8 days after Nayana had gone missing. Since it had already been about a week since Nayana's body had been found, the police began interrogating Yogesh strictly from the very beginning. Initially, he kept saying to the police that he didn't do anything, to let him go, and that he didn't even know Nayana. But his act couldn't last long in front of the police's pressure, and eventually he confessed that he, along with his accomplices, had murdered Nayana. After this, he narrated such a shocking story that when it came to light, many women took to the streets to protest against the police administration, demanding better safety for women and the harshest punishment for monsters like Yogesh Raut. On October 7, 2009, when Nayana got into Yogesh's car, 2 of his friends, Mahesh Thakur and Vishwas Kadam, were already seated inside. Both of them also worked at the same company as Nayana, which is why she didn't object to getting into the car. One of them worked as a security guard in the IT company, and the other, like Yogesh, was a company driver. Once in the car, Nayana told Yogesh, "Please drop me home quickly today because I'm really very late." Hearing this, Yogesh slightly increased the speed of the car, but after driving a little, he took the vehicle onto a road unfamiliar to Nayana. Seeing this, Nayana immediately said to Yogesh that this road doesn't go towards her house, that her home was in the other direction, so why had he taken this route? In response, Yogesh Raut said, "Ma'am, my friend named Rajesh Chowdhury is standing on this road, and I need to drop him home as well. So I thought I'd pick him up before dropping you, since his house is also along the way to yours." Hearing this, Nayana believed him for a moment and continued sitting calmly in the front passenger seat. After driving for some time, Yogesh's friend also got into the car. After that, the car started again, but this time too, Yogesh was not taking the correct route. After a while, Nayana grew suspicious and started to doubt the intentions of all these four men. Realizing this, she became extremely scared and immediately told Yogesh to stop the car so she could go home on her own from there. But Yogesh replied, "Ma'am, this car won't stop until we fulfill our desire with you." Hearing this, Nayana got angry and resisted, saying, "Let me out of the car right now or I'll scream and call people and the police." But instead of being afraid of her threats, the four criminals snatched her phone and broke it. That's why, when Nayana's husband, Abhijit, was trying to call her, her phone kept coming as switched off. Now, Nayana had started crying and pleading with them to let her go, but they had already planned something else. After that, they stopped the car in a deserted area, snatched Nayana's debit card, and at knife point, forced her to reveal the card's secret PIN. Then, one by one, all four of them took turns assaulting her. It's hard to imagine how much Nayana must have cried and begged in front of these sinners, but these monsters showed no mercy. Then the accused thought that since they had physically violated Nayana, they could no longer leave her alive, because if they did, she would go to the police and reveal their names and appearances, and they would all be caught. Out of this fear, they strangled Nayana to death with her own scarf inside the car. After that, to make sure Nayana's body couldn't be identified, they took the car to a forested area and crushed her head brutally with a stone. Then the four monsters dumped her body there and fled the scene. Later, they withdrew a total of 61,000 rupees from her account using different ATMs. After hearing the full story, the police also arrested Mahesh Thakur, Vishwas Kadam, and Rajesh Chowdhury. During the interrogation, all four confessed to kidnapping Nayana, physically violating her, robbing her, and then murdering her. At the time, this incident became a topic of discussion on every TV news channel and created a wave of outrage across the entire country. People came out in large numbers to protest and demand justice for Nayana. On one hand, every working woman in the country was now worried about her own safety. On the other hand, the police were working tirelessly to gather every small piece of evidence against the four accused in order to ensure the harshest punishment. The most shocking part of this case was that it was a driver from her own company who had betrayed Nayana so badly, a company whose drivers were trusted by so many women, allowing them to work late into the night without fear or concern about getting home. Because of this betrayal, many women working in major companies now lived in fear, feeling unsafe even at their own workplaces. However, the police managed to question all the witnesses and accused and collected all the necessary evidence to submit the charge sheet in court as quickly as possible. Even the judge ordered a narco test for all four accused, and a strong public prosecutor was appointed to fight the case. But to strengthen their case further, the police needed an eyewitness who had seen the crime happen. So the police spoke to Rajesh Chowdhury and convinced him to testify against his own companions. Now the case was being heard in court, and at every hearing, Rajesh was testifying against his three accomplices, Yogesh Raut, Mahesh Thakur, and Vishwas Kadam. But in the middle of this, the main accused, Yogesh, escaped from police custody. What happened was that he complained to the jail authorities that he had been suffering from severe itching for the past few days and that it had gotten worse, and now he needed to see a good doctor. He was taken to the jail hospital, but when the condition didn't improve, the police took him to a reputed hospital in Pune. While there, he tricked the police by saying he needed to use the restroom and escaped. In reality, Yogesh had already planned his escape from the hospital, and when he was admitted for treatment, his brother also came to visit him. During the visit, his brother gave him some money to use after the escape. After leaving the hospital, Yogesh went straight to the railway station and took a train to Surat, a city in the Indian state of Gujarat. But he couldn't stay there for long and once again took a train to India's capital, Delhi. However, just a few days after reaching Delhi, all the money he had was spent on food and local transport. Now, to earn money, he started looking for work in Delhi, but without any contacts, no one was willing to hire him. Yogesh reached a point where he was on the verge of starving, and that's why he traveled 279 miles from Delhi to the city of Amritsar. Amritsar is actually famous for the Golden Temple. It is the holiest Gurdwara in Sikhism and a major pilgrimage site, and Yogesh knew that the langar at the Golden Temple served food from morning till night. While staying in Amritsar, Yogesh didn't have to worry about food, so he spent his days wandering around looking for work. During this time, he made friends with some people who later helped him get a job at a hotel. In fact, while living in Amritsar, Yogesh even changed his identity. But soon he became bored with this life. He had started missing his wife. So just a few days after starting the job, he took leave and returned home. After that, he stayed at home for a few days and spent quality time with his wife. But fearing arrest, he returned to Amritsar again after just a few days. However, somehow, Pune police got this information through their informants that Yogesh Raut had visited his home in Pune. After that, Pune police began keeping a close watch on his entire family and even tapped all their cell phones. As a result, when Yogesh once called his wife, the police were able to trace his location. After that, Pune police arrested Yogesh from Amritsar, and once again, he was presented in court and sent behind bars. After this, the trial in the Nayana Pujari murder case formally resumed, as the proceedings had largely stalled during his time on the run. This is perhaps why the verdict in this case took a long 8 years to be delivered. But once the hearings were complete, the public prosecutor argued that Nayana Pujari had gotten into their car with the trust that they were employees working in the same company, so she had no reason to fear them. But in the end, it was the very people she trusted who betrayed her and took advantage of a helpless woman. The public prosecutor also termed this case as rarest of the rare and demanded the death penalty for the convicts. Because of this, the judge presiding over the case showed no mercy to the accused. On May 9, 2017, the Honorable Judge sentenced Yogesh Raut, Mahesh Thakur, and Vishwas Kadam to death for the crimes of kidnapping, sexual assault, robbery, and murder. However, the court did not sentence Rajesh Chowdhury and released him. Still, public debate erupted over the full acquittal of prosecution witness Rajesh Chowdhury. The public's main point was that someone who was involved in such a brutal crime against Nayana Pujari should not have been let off so easily. He should have faced some punishment. But perhaps because he turned state witness, he was ultimately spared. So, with that, the Nayana Pujari murder case comes to an end right here. If you appreciate our efforts, like and share this video. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Thank you. Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real story with you. Every parent in the world prays for just one thing, for their child to always be good, happy, and live a long life. For parents, nothing matters more than their children. But what would you say if some parents have been praying the same prayer every single morning, afternoon, and evening for the past 11 years? And that prayer is, I love my son immensely. I love him deeply, but God, please take his life. There's a family in Delhi, a mother, a father, a younger son, and an elder son. For the last 11 years, these parents have been praying daily for their elder son's death. They love him dearly, yet still wish for his death. It's been a long time, but even God had answered that prayer. Death hasn't come. So now they've knocked on the door of the court, because while prayers can be offered, sometimes they aren't enough. They couldn't take their son's life with their own hands. How could any parent do that? So they went to court and appealed that the court should make a decision and legally allow a way to end their son's life. In other words, that the court should take his life. There was a long debate over this in court. A bench of judges in the Delhi High Court heard the case, and on July 8, 2024, the High Court delivered its verdict. The court said that our Constitution, Article 21, gives every individual the right to live with dignity. Therefore, we cannot grant death to anyone. So, even though you want your son to die, we still cannot grant him death. Your son will remain alive. And that in itself is painful, that despite all his suffering, he will continue to breathe, but he will live. The law cannot take his life. But this is just one side of the story. There are many questions in this entire case. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. The year was 2013. A family was living in Delhi. The head of the family, Ashok Rana, used to work at a catering company. Their elder son, Harish, wanted to become an engineer. He was bright and good at his studies. He got admitted to Punjab University for civil engineering and began his B.Tech there. The family lived in Delhi, but since the admission was in Punjab University, Mohali, Harish moved to Mohali and started living there as a paying guest. Everything was going well. His parents were dreaming of the day their son would become an engineer and bring stability to their home. But then, one day, something unexpected happened. Harish's room was on the 4th floor of the PG, and suddenly he fell from the balcony of the 4th floor. He fell and suffered a severe head injury. He was immediately rushed to PGI Chandigarh Hospital. Since he fell from the 4th floor, a police case was also registered and an FIR was filed. But his condition didn't improve. He was nearly in a coma. There were several tests, including X-rays, and the injury was found to be critical. Despite all efforts and treatment at PGI Chandigarh, Harish's condition did not improve. His parents became extremely worried. The doctors then advised transferring him from Chandigarh to Delhi's renowned All India Institute of Medical Sciences. He was treated at there, but there was no improvement. Still holding on to hope, the parents kept taking him from one hospital to another. From there, they went to Lok Nayak Jayaprakash Narayan Hospital in Delhi, then to Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, and many other hospitals as well. But Harish's condition never improved. He was alive, but only breathing, nothing more. He was unaware of everything, sitting like a living corpse. Time kept passing. Eventually, the doctors said there was no longer any hope for recovery, but his breathing didn't stop. Legally, he wasn't dead, but on the other hand, no parent can watch their child slowly die. They spent all their life savings on their son. They had a 3-story house in Delhi. When the hospital expenses became too much, they brought Harish back home. They hired a nurse to take care of him, paying her around 27,000 rupees a month at the time, while Mr. Rana's own salary was 28,000 rupees. On top of that were expenses for medicines, food, and daily care. And whenever Harish's condition worsened, they had to rush him to the hospital again. But the alley where their house was located was so narrow that an ambulance couldn't even reach their doorstep. It was always a huge struggle. They had to carry him out themselves every time. Eventually, due to the ambulance issue, they even sold their house and moved elsewhere, just so an ambulance could at least reach their front door. They continued his treatment. Time kept passing, but his condition never improved. All the doctors, all the hospitals eventually gave up. They said keeping him in the hospital would only increase your bill. He would just occupy a bed and nothing else could be done. His body had become completely disabled. He couldn't move at all, just lying on the bed. All essential functions had to be managed on the bed itself. A urine bag was attached to help him pass urine, a stool bag for bowel movements, and food was given through a feeding tube. So the feeding tube remained attached to the bed, and the cost of the nurse was so high that they couldn't manage it anymore. Eventually, they let the nurse go. Now, the responsibility of caregiving fell entirely on Ashok Rana and his wife, Nirmala Devi. Their entire home became devoted to taking care of one sick person, all in the hope that maybe, just maybe, a miracle would happen. But the doctors had already ruled that out, and no miracle came. Time kept passing. Then Ashok Rana eventually retired. After retirement, the salary stopped, and the only income was a pension, 3,500 rupees a month. The younger son was very small at the time, so there was no hope for him to have a job yet. All the responsibility fell on Mr. Rana's shoulders. No one helped him back then. The government had initially given 50,000 rupees, but with such a long illness, that money was nothing. After retirement, taking care of that living corpse at home, meeting all his needs and providing food and drink just to keep him alive, required a lot of hard work. Near Rana's house, there was a ground where children used to come and play games on Saturdays and Sundays. One day, he saw the children playing games. He made sprouts and sandwiches at home and took them to sell. On Saturdays and Sundays, he earned some money from this, which went toward Harish's expenses because medicine and all other things were needed. He wasn't dead yet. He was still alive, so his needs had to be met. From medicines to physiotherapy and everything else, life went on. Slowly, Harish became nothing more than a skeleton lying on the bed for many years. For a long time, doctors neither declared him alive nor dead. He was completely unaware of the world, just lying on the bed, caught between life and death. The only thing keeping him alive was his heartbeat, nothing else. Since he was confined to the bed continuously, strange bacteria and infections began to develop. The parents were devastated. Their whole world turned upside down. They couldn't go anywhere or do anything. They didn't have enough money to hire a nurse or even rent a hospital bed. They begged for help everywhere, but no help came. Now Harish was at home with his parents taking care of him. Their younger son was growing up, and before his time, he wanted to help his family, especially his bedridden living corpse of a brother. And finally, before time, he grew up. He got a job, and with his income, the household expenses started running somewhat smoothly. But Harish's condition showed no improvement. Not knowing what else to do, in 2021, the family made a decision after every doctor and every medical board had given their answers, that they didn't know if he would ever get better, but no one could say when his breathing would stop. His suffering was different, and seeing that suffering made the parents even more restless. When they saw his suffering, the parents began praying again, saying, "Oh God, please take my son away because we can no longer bear to see his pain." His suffering was so intense that even though they were alive, they felt like they were dying. But their prayers didn't work. Many years passed, and then someone told them about the concept of euthanasia. So they thought, why not go to court and ask for a way to end his suffering? Both parents went to court on Harish's behalf. They hired a lawyer and said that for the past 11 years, their son, now around 30 to 35 years old, has been worse than dead, even though he's technically alive. They said they can no longer bear to see his pain. Every day they pray for his death, but it never comes. So they requested the court to grant permission for euthanasia. After a long legal debate, the Delhi High Court gave its decision on July 8th. That the right to life is granted by our constitution, but we cannot give anyone the right to die. After this verdict, the parents had mixed emotions, sadness, but also a strange sense of relief. They were relieved because just imagining what it would feel like if the court had said, "Yes, you can end his life," that thought alone made their hearts tremble. Because to actually carry it out, whether through a doctor or by stopping medication and letting him die on his own, would take unimaginable courage. Why? Because they knew exactly what they would be doing. Even though he has been lying like a corpse for years, his breathing continues. So when the court's decision came, they were left in a strange emotional state. Should they feel sadness or relief? Now, regarding Harish, the court referred to previous Supreme Court guidance which stated that Article 21 of our Constitution grants the right to life. But the court also acknowledged that a person should have the right to die, that a person deserves to die with dignity. It shouldn't be that someone simply says it and then their life is taken. They said, suppose in the future there's an elderly or sick person in a home who has wealth, property, or a will. Then it's possible that people might go to doctors or medical boards, create false medical certificates, claiming the person can't recover and has no chance of survival, and say we should be allowed to end their life. They warned that if this were allowed, India would be flooded with such cases. So the Supreme Court's concern was very valid. But in this case, the court also said, we understand the pain of the parents. We understand what it means to care for a child lying on a bed for 11 years. We understand how the whole atmosphere of the house must be affected, and what kind of agony that child is enduring. But still, the court said, we cannot give permission, because if Article 21 gives the right to life, it also includes the right to die, but with dignity, and even then, the legal framework doesn't support this. So the court denied the request, and just like God didn't answer their prayers, the court didn't either. Harish is still lying on that bed. His younger brother has started working, but saying, hearing, or reading about it from afar can never compare to the pain of the parents and brother who live it every day, waking up, eating, sleeping under the same roof, moving around Harish's bed, watching him, feeling his heartbeat, living the pain he cannot express, and bearing it with every breath. So this was today's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable. Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real story with you. You all probably know that whenever a case is registered, a charge sheet is filed afterward. Then the court proceedings begin and many things happen during that legal process. As part of that process, the police file the charge sheet, and in that charge sheet, they include their version of the story along with the names of the witnesses. They provide a list of evidence and many other things. Then, one by one, all the witnesses are presented in court. You also know that one of the reasons cases take so long in countries is because the list of witnesses is so long that it takes years just to complete their testimonies. Sometimes a single witness has to be called 5 times, and only then the process moves forward. Often, even when a witness shows up, their testimony isn't recorded. So, witness testimonies are a major issue, which is one of the biggest reasons for delayed justice in counties. And sometimes, both sides' lawyers play games, intentionally delaying the witness testimonies to drag the case out so that their client, even if guilty, doesn't get punished and at least stays out on bail. Because once a verdict is given, the person might have to go to jail. So that was about witness testimonies. But sometimes, if the court feels that a witness is not appearing despite being called multiple times, then summons are issued against them. Initially, 1 or 2 summons are sent requesting the person to appear. If they still don't come, then it's up to the court to issue a non-bailable warrant or an arrest order. I'm explaining all this so that the story I'm about to tell will be easier for you to understand. This incident is from 2018 in the Meerut area, which is near Delhi. There was some kind of fight going on in a locality of Meerut. Suddenly, the phone rang in the office of the then SP of Meerut. A staff member who was on duty picked it up. The person on the phone, sounding panicked and frightened, says, "Sir, in front of a house there is 10 people are attacking one man and they might kill him. Please send the police quickly." The officer on the other end asks for the address and the caller gives it before hanging up. That staff member immediately informs his senior. The information reaches the senior police, and then he gives instructions to notify the local police station. They're ordered to reach the crime scene immediately. In a hurry, a police jeep rushes to the location. So when they arrived, they saw that the person who had called and given all the information was right there, really was a man lying there in a terrible condition, badly injured. In a rush, the police picked him up and sent him to the hospital, but later that man died. On one side, the investigation continued. Since the case was under the local police, they created a list of all witnesses. Among them, there was one eyewitness. The police started questioning him and asked, "Where were you at that time?" He replied, "Sir, I was at the scene." They asked, "What did you see?" So he gave a 2-page statement describing what he witnessed. In the statement, he said that at the time the fight was happening, he was sitting inside his house, eating. Suddenly, he heard shouting outside and saw that several people were attacking one man and beating him badly. He said he even tried to help and intervene, but the attackers were in such a violent mood that he didn't have the courage to confront or argue with them. After that, the police arrived, but he clearly stated that he had seen everything with his own eyes. There were about 8 to 10 boys, and they were beating up one man whose name was Farhan. After that, the witness gave his statement, wrote it down, and dated it. The date he wrote was July 14th, 2018. This statement was kept safely along with all the other documents related to the case. The police conducted their investigation and eventually arrested around 8 boys. Some were named in the FR, while others were arrested later based on witness statements. Within 90 days, the police filed the charge sheet. After the charge sheet was submitted, the case moved to court. Now the trial in court was about to begin. One by one, all the witnesses were being presented before the court, and testimonies were being recorded. Then came the testimony of the person on whose statement the case stood the strongest, and that witness was Mahfouz. Mahfouz's testimony was crucial because the murder committed by those 8 to 10 boys happened right in front of his house. He had seen everything with his own eyes, the beating and the attack, and had given a detailed statement to the police. When the court asked the police to present him, the first time the police said, "Sir, he has gone out of town for some work." The court said, "All right, present another witness." Then the testimonies of the second, third, and other witnesses continued. After some time had passed, the court remembered and asked again, "Where is your main witness, Mahfouz?" The police once again made an excuse, saying, "Sir, he's not in the city. He's gone somewhere outside for work to earn a living." The court gave them more time and set a new date, asking them to present him on the next hearing. Then the next date came. Then the court asked again, "Where is he?" And once more the police made some excuse. Time kept passing. This was a 2018 case, and the trial had already begun by the end of 2018. After that, nearly a year went by, and one by one, witness testimonies were being completed. There were still many witnesses left, but the most crucial witness for the police still hadn't been presented in court, and that was Mahfouz. The court remembered again and asked the police, "Where is this witness?" Because during arguments, whenever a point was made, whether by the public prosecutor or the defense lawyer, they would claim that this was a false case, and Mahfouz's testimony was key to proving it wasn't. They would argue, "No one saw our client beating or attacking anyone." Then the government lawyer representing the police would argue, "No, we have a witness. He saw everything with his own eyes. It all happened right in front of his house." Then during cross-examination, the defense would say, "All right, then bring that witness." At this point, the police would start to panic and say, "Okay, we'll bring him." But slowly, this cycle of excuses kept repeating. Eventually, the court also became frustrated and said, "You've asked for time so many times, who is this witness really?" Then one day, after the police were scolded, they finally said, "Sir, he has changed his residence." The court said, "All right, find the new address and bring him in." Some more time passed. Another court date came. When asked about the witness, they said, There's still no trace of him. This time, the judge got angry and said, "So much time has passed and you're still making excuses for your most important witness. This won't be tolerated anymore. I will issue a non-bailable warrant or even an arrest warrant against him. And if he doesn't appear and if you people fail to present him in court, then action will be taken not just in this case, but also against the officer in charge of that police station. The inspector, I will get him suspended." After that, a warrant was issued. Now, with the warrant in hand, the police were stressed and confused. What do? We can't find the witness, Mahfouz. Then one day, they raided a house and brought several people from there to the police station. Once at the station, those people were roughly beaten. They were repeatedly asked, "Where is Mahfouz? Bring him here." Now, in that house they raided, there was a man named Mahfouz, a middle-aged man. Police said, brought him in, and everyone kept saying, "Sir, he's not the one you're looking for. He has nothing to do with that case." But the police weren't willing to believe them. They said, "I want the right person. There's a court date approaching." Soon, the relatives of those detained got to know that many of their family members had been taken by the police. The relatives hired a lawyer and told him the whole story, that because of someone named Mahfouz, their family members were being held at the police station and the police were threatening. The lawyer said, "All right, I'll fight the case." Being a smart lawyer, he then asked when the witness, Mahfouz, was supposed to testify in court. He found out that the court date was later that same month, just a few days away. He said, "Okay." When the court convened and the trial resumed, the judge immediately asked, "So, where is Mahfouz?" Before the police could respond, the lawyer whose clients had been picked up by the police in connection to Mahfouz stood up. The police were just about to say, "Sir, he's on the run. We don't know where he is," when the lawyer stood, introduced himself, and said to the judge, "Your Honor, if you permit, I would like to say something regarding this case. I'm not the lawyer from either side, but I can shed some light on this matter, and I can tell you exactly where that witness is." The police officers involved in the case were shocked, and so was the public prosecutor. The court granted permission, and the lawyer said, "I need to ask the investigating officer a few questions." The court allowed it. The lawyer then asked, "All right, tell me, what exactly did the witness named Mahfouz say in his testimony?" The inspector replied, "Sir, he said that on that day he was eating at home when he heard a commotion outside. When he heard the noise, he came outside and saw that many boys around 8 to 10 were attacking one individual and beating him up very badly. He said, I tried to stop them. I tried to explain to them, but they didn't listen and kept beating him up badly. But I didn't have enough courage to step in and break it up." After that, the police arrived. In court, the lawyer asked, "All right, Inspector, actually, at that time you were a sub-inspector, the one who recorded Mahfouz's statement. So tell us, did you personally take the testimony from the only eyewitness in this case?" He replied, "Yes. I spoke to him twice, once over the phone, and then once I sat with him in person and recorded his statement." The lawyer asked, "What did he look like?" He said, "He appeared to be middle-aged, probably around 45 to 48 years old." Then the lawyer asked, "When exactly did you take the statement?" He replied, "The incident happened on the 12th of July, and I recorded his statement on the 14th of July during the day. He signed it here. Look, this is his signature along with the date." And that 2-page statement clearly had Mahfouz written on it. The date written was July 14th, 2018, and the time mentioned was in the afternoon. The judge and the public prosecutor interrupted and asked the lawyer, "Why are you questioning this? What exactly are you trying to say today?" The lawyer replied, "Sir, I've finished my questions. I don't need to say anything else. I just want to show you a single page." The lawyer then pulled out a page from his coat pocket and handed it to the judge. The court assistant passed it on to the judge. The judge looked at the page and seemed disturbed and shocked. He then looked at the investigating officer and said, "Are you sure you personally recorded Mahfouz's testimony, spoke to him yourself, and took it down?" The inspector, unaware of what was in the paper, replied, "Yes, Your Honor. I recorded it myself and I am telling the truth before the court." The judge then asked, "Do you know what this page is, the one the lawyer just handed me?" The officer replied, "No, Your Honor, I don't know." The judge said, "This page shows that the Mahfouz, whose statement you claim to have recorded on July 14th, 2018, in the afternoon, that Mahfouz actually died in 2002. This is his death certificate. Now, either this death certificate is fake, but I have no reason to consider it fake. You were given dozens of chances to present that witness in court, and every time you made excuses. Now I understand that witness was a ghost, and that's why he never showed up. Now the judge himself is shocked, wondering if he actually issued a summons to a ghost and then issued an arrest warrant for a ghost. The law doesn't recognize such things. So then, who was it really?" Shocked and confused, the judge took a moment and then he said, "Inspector, please tell us, did Mahfouz truly give that testimony while sitting in front of you, while you were fully conscious and aware?" Now, the inspector is sweating and trembling. He keeps stuttering and saying, "Yes, sir." So the judge asked, "If he gave you that statement on July 14th, 2018, then how did he die in 2002, 16 years earlier? Did you take the statement of a dead man?" The judge now understood the whole story and immediately ordered a full inquiry into the matter, whether this witness is alive or dead, human or ghost. The court passed an order and directed the senior superintendent of police to investigate and bring the truth before the court. The SSP assigned the responsibility to the SP, and once the inquiry began, the truth finally came out. And that truth is something our police often do. The truth was, when the incident happened, the sub-inspector was in charge at the police station. He thought it was just a regular fight and didn't take it seriously. Later, when it turned into a death case, he didn't feel like doing the hard work. Sitting comfortably on his chair in an air-conditioned office, he didn't want to go look for actual witnesses or evidence. So, what did he do? He called a few people. He asked around, "Hey, who lives in that area?" Then he asked one person, "What did you see?" The person replied, "I didn't really see anything. I just heard something." So he said, "All right, write it down on paper, you'll be the witness now, a fake witness." That man wrote it, and after that he left the Meerut area. No one knows which city he moved to. He took a job somewhere else and settled down with his family. He doesn't even live there anymore. Now, the sub-inspector thought that the statement had been recorded, and by the time the trial would begin and a verdict would be reached, everything would be forgotten. He assumed nothing would come of it. But what he didn't know was that the witness he wrote down would trap him. The person he named as a witness was already dead. The testimony he had recorded was from a dead man. Unluckily, the dead person's name was also Mahfouz, but he wasn't even a witness. And this whole story about witnessing the crime from across the house was completely fake. When the police did an internal inquiry, the sub-inspector had to tell the truth. He admitted, "I just made up the testimony. I created a fake witness. How was I supposed to know that one day the name and address I randomly used would turn out to be someone who had died 16 years ago?" Coincidentally, in the house from where they picked up the people earlier, there was also a man named Mahfouz of the same age. But the family kept saying, yes, there was someone named Mahfouz in our family, but he died 16 years ago. So the lawyer said that day, "The death certificate that this family has, that's the proof. The man is dead." Yet, the police are refusing to accept it. That's why the lawyer had to come forward to the court and represent that family. After all this, the court issued an order to take action against the sub-inspector and his team. That fake witness was also removed from the list, but even now the verdict in this case has not been given. When there are such witnesses and such situations, how can a verdict come quickly? In some countries, as I mentioned, there are many fake witnesses. Sometimes even the guarantors for bail are fake. 4 people are presented for bail and 2 or 3 of them, no one even knows if they are alive. This has been going on for a long time. It might sound bizarre or unusual to many of you. In this system, even dead people are made into witnesses, and sometimes dead people are even declared as criminals. It's a strange game, and everything goes on like it's normal. So this was today's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable.